If I asked you on the spot what was your favorite type of movie, or what's one of your favorite type of movies, you probably wouldn't say monster movies. Don't get me wrong, it's great when you want to get in like a spooky mood on October, Halloween, but it's not something that you'd want to watch religiously every single year, every single day probably, or whenever you watch a film. I love monster movies, and I have been just infatuated with the way they're made and the way they feel, like the aesthetic of a monster movie, ever since I was a kid. I mean, everyone and their fucking dog, if they pick up a camera and they want to make a film, it will probably be inspired by some of the 30s, 60s, 50s monster movies. I mean, these films are classics. They're timeless for a reason, because the way they're made is so intuitive, innovative, and just downright fucking incredible for the time. I mean, some of the special effects they're able to pull off with some of these films is just insane to me. These films have been an inspiration for a lot of things that I've done, a lot of things that I've edited, and just like in my life, to be honest, in a weird type of way. And if it wasn't for these films, I probably wouldn't have been into horror as much as I am. Now, to talk about horror, we're gonna have to talk about these films, because I mean, these films basically started the idea of a horror film. These were the original catalyst to what is now known as horror. And it's awesome. These films were made on a very small budget. At least some of them. Depending on what producer was put on to each, film, they'd be giving a small budget, something minuscule. But what they're able to pull off with this small budget goes to show you the creativity that went behind the films. A lot of things that I just enjoy with monster movies is just seeing the cheap special effects. Because the emotions that they're able to convey with these type of things shows me that they put thought and care into everything they were making. Even if it was a tiny bit, it was still thought and it was still care. And I think, honestly, it's sorely lacking in today's Hollywood. You see a film that you think, okay, this will probably be good. I mean, it's a pretty easy film. There's nothing in here that could be, offensive. It's a very inoffensive film. And then you go see it and you realize it's a piece of dog shit. Like, let's compare fucking Dracula to Morbius, Look at Morbius, it's shit. And Dracula was able to convey way more fucking emotions and feelings on a smaller budget in a different time. It's incredible. Now let me take you on a deep dive here, alright? We're gonna look at some newer horror films, and we're gonna look at some older horror films, and I'm gonna compare and contrast, because I think if I'm gonna be talking about older horror films, like monster movies, we're gonna be looking at newer monster movies. And depending on what time frame you're looking at, it really differs in quality. So I'm really excited to just take a little look and just see what's changed and what hasn't, and what stayed and what hasn't. So let's get into it. Now, to talk about monster movies, we're gonna have to talk about the fucking granddaddy of monster films. That is Frankenstein, the 1930s adaptation, to be exact. Because there's been many adaptations of Frankenstein over the years. None of them come close to what the original was, or what the original was trying to do. And honestly, the original succeeds in so many ways that some of the newer adaptations of Frankenstein just can't. And it's incredible to me that these films that came afterwards don't have the same passion that the original had, or they lack something that the original had, even though the film is so old at this point, from the 1930s. I mean, it's insane to me that this sort of film could be made back then, and people were shocked to see this film, because it was so involved with the lore and the story of the Mary Shelley novel. It's so incredible to see a film like this come out in that era, especially with the special effects at the time. I mean, come on. Some of these special effects are still good to this day, but that's because back in the 1930s, if you were going to do a stunt, you were going to do it yourself. And it's incredible. Boris Karloff is in this film. Boris Karloff, a horror staple. A horror staple. Frankenstein is a great film, and I really think that if you haven't watched it before, please do yourself a service and check this film out, because I love the original Frankenstein. Just the way that the special effects are done, the makeup, just everything brings that sort of gothic medical. I don't even know how to explain Frankenstein. It's a gothic medical, like, kind of gory in some ways, I guess, monster fanatic love letter to life, and it's just incredible. Now, we're gonna take a little break from talking about the older monster movies. As I said, we're gonna compare and contrast here. I'm not really here to do an in-depth review of all these films. Really, I'm just here to talk about why I love these films so much. I mean, Frankenstein, I love it so much because of the passion and creativity that it took to make that film, especially in the era that it was made. And I think this next film that we're going to talk about really encapsulates that for another generation, but not in the same way. Well, you'll see when we get there. Probably the weirdest way I could have started this, but yeah, we're here to talk about Evil Dead. Now, I love the Evil Dead series. Oh my god, I could go on for hours about this series. I mean, just the theatrical, the cinematography, the acting, just everything about the first Evil Dead film, in my eyes, is the ultimate horror film done in a tasteful way that doesn't deride from the older horror films of the time. It's very similar in many ways to what I would believe a film, like a film adaptation of older horror films. This is what I would think of. Evil Dead, very, very similar. And I think it's also kind of cool that in a weird way, the second and third Evil Dead films blend comedy and horror together. Two of my favorite things blend the slapstick humor of the Three Stooges with, the horror and the punchy jump scares. Everything just comes together so beautifully, and I think it's something that Tarantino said, I believe, is that horror and comedy are not far apart. Horror and comedy, it's all about the timing, the pacing, the cinematography, just everything. It's so close together that it makes sense that one day they'd come together to form this incredible, just masterclass of acting and cinematography. Just everything about Evil Dead screams masterpiece, in my opinion. Look, I get if you don't like the cheesy, campy feel of an Evil Dead film, but you've got to admit that these films, whether or not you like them, are just good in their own right and have merits to what make them, the perfect comedy horror. I love Evil Dead for this reason and this reason alone. I'm not a big fan of newer horror films because they always rely on cheap jump scares. But I think Evil Dead is my favorite horror series because it blends the comedy and horror together so well, and they're two of my favorite things to try and do and try and bring to life. So to see it done so well, and especially for the time it was made, it's just awesome. It's just awesome to see. Now, yeah, I really just wanted to take a moment to talk about Evil Dead and just my appreciation for the series. Bruce Campbell is an incredible actor, and he's so good as Ash Williams. I love Ash as a character. Just everything that Evil Dead means so much to me, I love Evil Dead. Just, man, I told you I could talk about this for hours.
Well, you used to really be scared here.
Johnny.
You're still afraid.
Stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
They were indeed coming to get Barbara. This is Night of the Living Dead. A cinematic classic, a masterpiece even. And I would say even the predecessor to Evil Dead in some ways. This is the original zombie film. Directed by the grandfather of zombies, George Romero. I love this film for so many reasons. Just the aesthetic, just everything that's going on around it, the actors. I mean, just some of the scenes, they don't use special effects much in this film. And when they do, they're used very well. But in this film, a lot of it's very physical. And I quite like that, especially with a zombies film, because it's like, if you're doing a zombie film, you want it to be physical. You want to get into like a rug tug type of situation where you're having to fight off a zombie, like what's going on in the background right now. I think that if a zombie film doesn't have those physical moments, it's not a true zombie film. It's not a true zombie thing. But obviously, this is the start. This is the foundation for a zombie anything. So George Romero really had the idea of a zombie to begin with. He really understood what a zombie was because he created the zombie, And I think that's awesome to think about. The formula for a zombie and the way that the zombies act has always been around in George Romero's mind for as long as he was creating the film. It may be probably even before. And I just love George Romero's work, even the ones that people don't seem to fondly look back on. In some ways, I love George Romero's work and what he did here. It's just incredible to see all the love and attention that was put into this film. And really, I mean, these films spawned so much, since there's, a zombie film really wasn't a well-known thing, for many years, and George Romero kind of spawned my favorite game mode in Call of Duty, Call of Duty Zombies. So really, I got to thank George Romero for most of the things that I do nowadays. It's awesome just to, see what Zombies was and what Zombies is now. I love this film for so many reasons, but we'll get back. We'll talk about zombies as in the next film as well. We'll talk about what I love about zombies, because I think this film really set a bar and was able to experiment with what it wanted to do, and that's what this next film definitely does.
Do you want anything from the shop?
Cornetto.
I see. What's the deal?
We may have to kill my stepdad.
Listen, Mum, sit tight, okay? You're not safe there. We're coming over.
I don't want to cause a fuss.
We're coming to get you, Barbara!
Who doesn't love a good cornetto, a nice cup of tea, and who doesn't like to wait for it to all blow over? I, for one, certainly do. This film, how do I even describe this film? It's like if Night of the Living Dead met a hopeless romantic comedy. That's the best way I can describe it, and it sounds cheesy if you hear it. This film is arguably one of the best comedy films, zombie movie. whatever it's trying to do, it does perfectly in every way. And I love Shaun of the Dead. It's such a good film. Obviously, you've got Simon Pegg, Nick Frost. I mean, you've got Peter Serafinovich, you know, Bill Nighy. Oh, man. And the soundtrack's banging too. You can hear it in the background. I mean, man. What have I not already said about most of the other films that I can say about Shaun of the Dead? It's directed by Edgar Wright, who's one of my favourite producers and directors of all time. And arguably his quick, punchy, clean-cut edits with the little whoosh sound effect. Oh man, some of that is just incredible, and it works so well in like a zombie film as well. It works so well in like a kind of punchy zombie film, because George Romero kind of did that as well in Night of the Living Dead, where he'd like kind of cut from one scene to another quite quickly, and it'd be a little jarring because obviously he didn't, you know, it was like the 50s, like, you know, you didn't have much like that, you know, like Final Cut and stuff like that. But like Edgar Wright, you know, who obviously used the punchy whoosh sound effect and the cuts all the time, knew how to use it and knew how to space them out, and it just works so well in this film. You know, it's one of my Halloween treats just to like watch Shaun of the Dead. That's like one of my favorite things to do. If I'm not going out, you know, with my friends on Halloween, I'm probably going to be watching Shaun of the Dead inside. And man, it really, you know, my Halloween is sorted at that point, because I fucking love this film. It's so good.